Today we're going to be talking about a bunch of stuff. We're going to be talking about crypto. We're going to talk about where you put those gains. We're going to be talking about tax-free growth, tax-free retirement, creating yourself a pension. Look, you're going to make a bunch of money in crypto. What do you do with it after? So without further ado, welcome to the F'd Up Podcast. Faith, family, finance, fun, and fitness. Let's roll. David, thank you for being here once again.
Absolutely.
Just give you a little introduction here. David Henning has been a friend of mine for over 10 years. Used to work in wealth management, right? We'll have you kind of give you a little story, a quick synopsis of that. But I've known David forever, and let's just go into it. Where did you used to work? Where are you now? And then we're going to get into this.
So actually, in my background, I went to college, majored in marketing and finance with a minor in economics. So I got into the financial industry doing wealth management. I used to play a little football. So they wanted me to bring in a lot of my football buddies and manage their money and do everything else. This was way back in like 2007, 2008.
Did you have all those licenses, a 6, 65, 7, all that stuff?
I did all of that within a period of like a month and a half.
Okay.
You know, in order, when I got hired by that wealth management firm, they laid out a course or a path for me to get all those licenses. So I started off with the easiest one, which was the life, health, and annuity license. Took me about 3 days to do that. Then I spent about 2 weeks getting my Series 7 and another 2 weeks getting my Series 66 license.
Cool. And you don't have them, you have them now, but they're not hung.
I do. I have them. I don't have them placed anywhere.
Because like it's crazy. Like people think we're in this industry now, and I'm noticing that some of these insurance products, most of them are outperforming or performing just as good as if you're in the market, which is crazy, right? It's just a different world than what it used to be, and this industry takes so long to catch up, you know. So let's go into some crypto here. So for those of you that follow me for crypto, most of you do. There's something that is happening right now, and it's called the supply and demand shock that I've been telling you guys about for God knows how long. I've been screaming it from the rooftops forever that when we go through the Bitcoin halving, everybody thought, oh my God, right? It's going to go crazy. And we did see the price of all cryptos go up, right? But after the halving, everybody was like, well, what happened? And it was kind of like a buy the rumor, sell the news. Yeah. And we've just kind of been stagnant. Liquidity's out of the market, elections, all these things are going on. So it's kind of been a boring market. It will come back, and the reason why is because you're starting to see more Bitcoin, right, being bought than being made. And what happens eventually, right, that's going to cause a supply and demand shock, which is going to make the price of Bitcoin skyrocket. You're going to have FOMO, and the first time ever, right, in the history of crypto and Bitcoin, we have large institutions like BlackRock and others. The banking institutions will get in as soon as we get Gary Gensler out of there, right? Fire Gary Gensler, right? Day one, hopefully. You're going to see the price of Bitcoin skyrocket, which then will come into altcoins. And the biggest thing people want to know is, well, okay, Tyler, I know I can make a lot of money in crypto. Eventually, it's going to happen. But what do I do with it after, right? That's the big thing. So we're going to be talking about things that I'm going to be doing with my money, right? What I'm going to be doing with some of the profits that I make in crypto. And why? Because one, I want to protect my family. I want to leave a legacy. I don't want to leave this earth like my grandparents and great-grandparents did, right? And leave our family struggling. How do we pay for the funeral? How do we, we have these houses, these bills, all these things. I want to make sure my family, when I leave this earth, they are taken care of, right? And I think that's very important. So those of you that have kids and all that, and you want to leave a legacy, this is a great way to do it. But I'm going to let David go into this because he's really good at explaining how this works. So without further ado, go ahead, David. Let's go.
And before we get into this, I want to go take a step back for a minute and talk about some stuff. You talked about me starting my career in wealth management, right?
Yep.
This was back in 2008. And for a lot of people, probably on TikTok, you may be too young to remember what happened in 2008. But in 2008, we had a major market correction. We had the housing bubble burst, right? And I watched a lot of people that were relying on wealth management, relying on a 401k, relying on the markets, lose half of everything they spent their whole life saving. And that did not sit well with me. And I was sitting in a room with over 200 advisors, and everybody was taking phone calls. And our clients were calling saying, what do we do? Do we stay in the market? Do we get out of the market? And the old school thinking in our industry is you stay in the market, you ride it out, right? because if you get out now, you might miss out on the two biggest days of the return, and then you'll never recover.
Can I stop you there? You talk about the two biggest days of return. Typically throughout a year, there's only a handful of days where the market really outperforms, right? Can you elaborate on that?
So, you want to take advantage of the ups of the market, right? When it goes up. Unfortunately, it's all about timing. And the one thing I love about all of your posts that you do, you talk about it's not about timing the market, it's time in the market. So it's kind of like what those guys were saying at the time. It's time in the market. They were saying ride it out. Because statistically, yes, if you ride it out, you're going to be okay in the long term.
Your dollar cost average and lowering your cost average, things like that.
Yeah.
But a lot of people ended up pulling their money out. They got scared, and then they missed the two
on the
biggest
rebound,
days is what
right?
you're talking about. They missed the rebound.
And so I sat there and I watched people that are a year, 2 years away from retirement, and they lost half of everything. And now, instead of being able to retire in the next year or two, they were continuing to work for another 10 years to recover from those losses.
So there's a client of mine, and we'll talk about it when we go into the next slide here. I'm not going to do that right now, but when we do, there's a client of mine, and she gave me full permission to talk about it. She was in Vanguard, right? And she lost half her retirement, over $1 million, during what you're talking about in that correction.
Yeah.
And it took her 12 years to get back to where she was.
Yeah, and believe it or not, Vanguard actually rode that roller coaster out better than anybody else.
And it still took
Vanguard did well.
Still took her 12 years to get back. And I think what happened was they put her into safer assets. And it's like, wait a minute, well, why did you do that?
After she lost everything,
Yeah.
they put her into something that's not going to get the rebound, the return, right?
Right. So now she's really big on protecting her wealth because she sees the writing on the wall. Whether, then not to get too political, but, if Trump wins, I think we see a really big market upside, right? Kamala, I'm not so sure. But regardless, even after Trump, Kamala, it doesn't matter. We are going to see another recession. That is coming, I think, in the next 10 years. It's, we talk about the yield curve inverting, and it's always been right, and that leads to a recession sometime after. The writing's on the wall. It's just a matter of when, not if, right?
Right.
So protecting your money, growing it tax-free, that's very important. We're going to be talking about that. But anyways, go ahead.
And so I observed all that stuff, and I'm extremely empathetic. And it affected me watching people lose money. So I was very aggressive with my clients. While most advisors were avoiding their clients, I was calling every client. And I was asking them their opinion. I said, do you think that the market's going to continue to go down like it is, or do you think it's going to rebound? Well, their response was, you're my advisor. You're supposed to tell me. And I said, I understand that, but I want to know how you feel. And everybody was scared in 2008. Everybody was afraid of the market going down. And I said, what we need to do is do something to help you protect your money, right? I'll be honest with you, nobody at that time knew what was going on. Okay, nobody knew. And so we needed to be proactive with our clients, and we needed to protect their money. And at the time, I did the best that I could with what I had. So I was early in exiting the market. So because I got out early and I went to safety early, most of my clients ended up making money in 2008 because everybody else followed suit after me and went to safety afterwards. And if everybody else goes and invests in what you're in, guess what happens? You talk about supply and demand and everything else, the value increases, right?
That's true. Can you go back to the Bitcoin slide real quick? Let's keep it there for a minute. So that's good to hear. I mean, so you saw the writing on the wall and you're like, hey, it's like ass covering time.
Well, I took an educated guess. Like you and I are very different, right? And this is why we make such a great team and a great partnership. You love Bitcoin. I like Bitcoin, but I don't understand it well enough to do well in Bitcoin, right? I do the opposite of probably what I should do in Bitcoin, but you're very good at it.
Well, you're in the traditional financial world, right? And so am I, right? But I've kind of gone, and obviously there's, I guess maybe age has something to do with it. I'm a little bit younger, and the younger crowd is like really into this whole tech money and
quick
right?
money. You're more aggressive.
But
I'm more conservative, and I like to protect things.
But the problem I run into myself and just people that follow me is like, well, what do we do after?
Yeah.
Right? Like it's like And crypto is so volatile. People don't understand the volatility till they get into it. And they make a bunch of money, then they don't take their profits, and then they watch it and they ride it out and they see it go back down, and then they sell at a loss, right? And I'm trying to get people to understand that when you start making your 5, 10, 20 X's on your money, you need to take it and you need to put it somewhere, and not all of it. I'm not saying take every dollar and put it into insurance or put it into gold or real estate. And I think we can both agree that these are all great assets to own, right? But you should be putting some of it into an insurance product and insuring your money. You talk about this all the time. You insure your car, you insure your house, you insure all these different things, but you're not insuring yourself and you're not insuring your money.
Yeah,
right?
Two of your biggest assets.
It's the craziest thing to me. So anyways, yeah.
So you mentioned FOMO a little while ago. FOMO is one of the biggest things that kill your wealth, right? Fear of missing out. One of the best investors of all time is Warren Buffett. And Warren Buffett says, when others are greedy, be fearful. When others are fearful, be greedy. And that's some of the best advice you could get when it comes to investing. What do most people do in crypto? What do most people do when it comes to investing in the market?
Well, it's the same thing. So I'm going to allude to that. I'm going to go into that. So when you talk about what Warren Buffett says, most people are going to get back into the crypto market when everything's green. I talk about that. I have so many haters in the comments and messaging me and, dude, you're an idiot. You're wrong, this and that. You've been wrong, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, the last couple of months because everything's been going down. So they're out of the market. They've sold. They're getting out. And they're probably not going to get back in until everything is green again.
Yeah.
And it's crazy to me. It's your mindset should be the complete opposite. When everybody is like against it, when everybody's like, you see all the haters come out and all the doubters, right? That's when you should be like, maybe I shouldn't follow the herd. Maybe I shouldn't be a sheep and follow the herd. Absolutely. And do the opposite. And that's what Warren Buffett talks about.
That's what he talks about. It's like when you go to the supermarket, do you want to buy stuff when it's on sale, or do you want to pay full price for something?
There you go. That's a good way to look at it.
And so what happens is everybody sees a stock. They see a Bitcoin or crypto, rising really fast. Everybody's jumping in.
They want to FOMO it.
And then they get FOMO. They're like, oh, I don't want to miss out on this amazing opportunity. So now what did you just do? You just bought in at a premium when it's most expensive, right? And then when it starts to go down, what do most people do? They panic.
And they sell it. And they sell it at a loss. Oh my God, it's going down. I don't know what to do.
And they sell it at a loss. And it, yeah.
And this is why I talk about this all the time, dollar cost averaging. It's one of the most important things. Like, you just have to have patience. A lot of people don't have patience. I mean, the reality of it is when I do videos, I try to keep them to a 30-second to a minute long because I can't keep the attention of somebody, even if what I'm talking about is gold, right? You look at the analytics, only like 10% actually stay for the entire video after a minute, right? And that's on some of my best videos that have gotten hundreds of thousands of views or millions of views, because most people, they just don't have the attention span to even pay attention to a talk, let alone sit there and hold on to something, right, and wait out the storm. And then to add to that, actually dollar cost averaging into something. And this doesn't matter if it's crypto, this could be an insurance product, this could be stocks, this could be real estate, gold, right? That whole concept makes sense. Right, so
yeah. So a lot of the things you talk about are sound financial principles. You talk about dollar cost averaging. You talk about taking your profits. You talk about all these things. Another thing I want to talk about real quick is a thing called asset allocation. Okay, it was a study done by two University of Chicago professors, and they said exactly what we were just talking about a minute ago. People do the opposite of what they should. When we design a portfolio for somebody of stocks, you might have large cap, mid cap, small cap, all these different things, emerging markets. And you'll design a nice little portfolio for somebody with true diversification. Well, after a year, that whole thing gets out of it gets all wonky.
Some are up,
right?
some are down.
Some are up, some are down. So now it's not this nice little, portfolio, but it's all like a little wobbly thing. So human nature says, this one did really well, so I'm going to buy more of it, right? This one did poorly, so I'm going to sell it. Well, that's the exact opposite of what you should do. What you should do is buy in, sell the stuff that performed really well, buy the stuff that was underperforming because now you're buying at a discount.
Correct. You're lowering your cost average.
And reallocate your portfolio.
Right.
And by doing that, they've proven that over the years, you'll increase the performance by several percentage points.
So let's get into that real quick. So talking about dollar cost averaging. See, there are some people that will time a market and do well. But most people are paying attention to life. They're too busy to really pay attention to a portfolio where they can time the market, right? Do I think, yes, ultimately, if you can time the market, yes, it's better to do that, right? But most people, they don't have the time to sit there. They also don't understand how to read charts, right? They don't understand the micro and the macro, right? So I tell people all the time, if you're not going to be paying attention to it on a daily basis, just keep on buying. Whether the price is up or down, if you have conviction long term and you're not thinking just for the next 6 months or a year, if you're thinking 4, 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, then DCA. And talking about dollar cost averaging, I get this a lot. Everybody wants me to explain it. So, and maybe you can elaborate on what I'm about to say. But when you talk about dollar cost averaging, let's just give me an example. Let's just say that Bitcoin is $100 per coin. Let's go back in time, back into 2010, whatever it was. Bitcoin's $100 a coin. And you buy one Bitcoin. Now your cost average is $100, right? Yep. And then Bitcoin goes down 50% to $50 per coin. And you're like, wow, that's a big discount. I'm going to buy another one, right? What's your average cost? Well, the math on that would be 75, right? You bought at 50, right? You bought at 100. Your cost is now in the middle of that, right? You lowered your cost. So when Bitcoin gets back up, right, to that $75 mark, anything over 75, you're in profit instead of having to wait till it gets back to 100, right, to make profit. So this is why I talk that's why we talk about how important it is. I don't know if you want to elaborate on it.
No, dollar cost averaging is just really simple. When it's higher, okay, you get a certain amount, right? So you mentioned the $100 mark.
Yeah.
So if you bought like 10 shares at $100 or 10 Bitcoin, okay, you spent $1,000, right? Well, when Bitcoin goes down, let's say it goes down to $50, you spend the same $1,000.
Now you're getting double.
You get twice as much.
Right.
So over the long haul, you're going to end up with a lot more.
And you're in profit faster.
Faster.
Right. So that's the power of it. But you just have to have patience. That's the biggest thing we talk about is patience, dollar cost averaging, diversification, all of these things, right? But none of this will matter. Dollar cost averaging, right, won't matter if you're not patient, though. Right. You do have to be patient. So
yeah, this is why we're going to jump into this tax-free retirement strategy.
Let's do it.
Because everything we just talked about can get very complicated for most people, right? How would you like an automated do-it-for-yourself system?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Allow the experts to do all of these things for you and take it off your plate. Something where you can dollar cost average into the market, you can take away the risk, right? You can get a lot of things taken care of very simply by leveraging this tax-free retirement strategy.
And remind me when we get there, remind me of talking about the power of zero. Because some people, they're like, well, maybe you don't get all the upside and there's insurance costs and all this. But when you talk about the power of zero, never losing over the long run, typically that will outperform any market. Let's go into this. This is what you were just talking about, how you can get the upside of the market, none of the downside, the power of zero. There's a bunch of different, we use an acronym called PERKs, right? So I talk about like there's fees in every type of investment that you buy, whether it's Bitcoin, buying on Coinbase, whether it's a 401k, most people have a 401k or an IRA, right? A Roth, even though it's tax-free growth, you still are paying a fee. That fee, where does that fee go?
So
it's going to the money manager.
The money manager in most cases. So if you do a mutual fund, typically you're paying like an A share, B share, C share. There's all these different costs, but typically an A share for most people that are investing long term, they're paying like 5.25%, 5.5% on a mutual fund, right? If you're doing a 401k, there's internal costs. There's a thing called 12B1 fees, which is what the money managers get paid to create those funds inside your 401k.
Not to mention some investments you're paying a premium. Sometimes they'll sell, even if they say the price is $50, you're paying $52, whatever it is. There's sometimes in these investments there's a premium. I know that. So
yeah, and if you're using a money manager, they're sometimes charging you 1 or 2% to pick those investments for you.
There's some IRAs and stuff that I've seen that they're charging you upwards of 4 or 5%. That we've seen, right, with some companies. So why am I bringing that up, though? And we'll get into that. But the reason I'm bringing that up is because you're going to pay fees in everything that you do, but that fee is not going to get you any benefits, right? You're going to pay a fee in what we do here, but you're going to get a bunch of benefits for paying that fee, right? Yeah. Would you rather get benefits from paying the fee you're already going to pay, or would you rather just pay that fee to someone else and get nothing for it? So let's get into this, because this is one of my favorite vehicles. My mom, myself, my fiance, all my kids, right? Friends of mine, clients of mine, we all have one of these. And this isn't designed to be your entire retirement, but it's definitely a supplement that will really help. So let's go into it. Tax-free retirement strategy. David, you're very good at explaining this. You've been doing this for 20 years. So get into it.
So let's go back again real quick. 2008, markets crashing. I came through that, and my clients did all right. but I was very lucky by being contrarian and getting out early. After that, I'm like, I never want to go through this again. So I started to do a lot of research, a lot of due diligence, and I discovered that the insurance companies were much better at mitigating risk, right? When you think insurance, what do you think? Mitigating risk.
Right.
They have all these actuarial people, really smart people behind the scenes that design everything, and it's all calculated risk. So I said, let me go learn what they're doing.
So speaking on mitigating risk, let's talk about this for a quick second. During the financial crisis, during the 80s crisis, during the Great Depression, there's something that I want to point out, that the life side, right, of every insurance company, whether it was Nationwide, North American, Allianz, right, it doesn't matter, nothing happened to them. No bailouts, nothing was needed. People talk about,
solid.
I mean, AIG had some issues on their auto side and their home side, but their life side, nothing to worry about.
Even AIG, I wasn't worried about them. I actually made a lot of money on AIG at the time because I knew that these large insurance companies weren't going to fail.
Well, they have something called reinsurance.
They have reinsurance and everything else. So I invested a lot of money in AIG when their stock tanked, and it paid off pretty well for me.
Well, so let's talk a little bit more about why you might want to look at insurance as a place to park your money.
So I went over, I started working for a large insurance carrier, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot about their strategies and the things that they did, but they were like ultra conservative in most cases. And so I said, I'm not going to get as high of a return with insurance, but it is safer, right? So if you look at over the long haul, insurance typically outperforms. Well, fast forward into my insurance career, I learned about this strategy, Index Universal Life, which is a hybrid of investing in the market and insurance. Okay, so back in the day, like way back when I first started, there was caps on all this stuff, right? You could only earn so much on the investments inside, so it limited your upside potential. But now, fast forward to today, it's advanced a lot, and most of these are uncapped.
I was talking to somebody over at Quantum, I think it was Cooper. He was telling me that there's a new BlackRock index that's uncapped, I believe.
Yeah, there's a lot of different investment options that are uncapped. So you get the full upside potential of the market without any of the downside risk.
So let me just break it down for you guys a little more in depth so you guys understand. So, and there still are some really capped indexes that are really good, right? That cap you at 11, 12%, right? But you get none of the downside. So over time, you end up winning big time. Mm-hmm. But what he's saying is if it's capped and it's a 12% cap, if the market does 17%, you're going to get 12. Right? The rest of that is going to go to the insurance company. They're going to make the money on that. But there's a lot of indexes now because they need to compete with money managers. Mm-hmm. They need to compete with your 401k, your IRA, and all that stuff. So what they've been coming out with is uncapped indexes that if it does 20%, you're getting all 20%. Right? Some of them even give you a participation rate, which is even higher.
Gives you higher than the actual return.
Yeah. So just to give you guys some a little bit more in depth on how that works.
Yeah. There's a lot of different options, but I love the tax-free retirement strategy. Here's why. We talk about all those different investment options, all those things that most people don't understand. They didn't go to school for. So we take that away from them and we just make it super simple.
Right.
So with the tax-free retirement strategy, number one, I want people to understand the majority of the population, 80% of the population, unfortunately put all their money in the bank. And if you follow me on my Instagram, you'll hear me say all the time, money in the bank is dead. Well, what do I mean by that? Now, a certain portion of your money should be in the bank, your liquid money, your money in, money out, pay your bills, your emergency fund, things like that that you're gonna need access to quickly. That's okay. But anything above that, you're really safely losing money. Well, what do I mean by safely losing money? Well, even if you have it in a CD, a money market, you might be getting like 1 or 2% if you're lucky. Well, if you're getting 1 or 2% and inflation is at 3 to 7%, you're slowly losing buying power. Mm-hmm. So the bank is not the most efficient place to leave all your money.
Where most people put their money, though, it's crazy.
So you have safety at the bank, but you lose the potential for upside gain.
Right.
So now if I just talked to you about upside gain, you're like, well, I want to get more return on my money. So what do? You're going to go to a crypto. You're going to go to the market. You're going to go buy stocks. You're going to invest in a business. Okay, so that's 15% of the population. They like to invest their money. Okay, and they do it for the higher rate of return. Well, guess what you get with a higher rate of return? You get a higher rate of risk.
True.
So it's about potential for gain and potential for loss and balancing that,
True.
right? And then there's a third strategy that most people don't understand and they've overlooked, and it's insurance. With insurance, what happens is you get the safety of the bank. You cannot lose any money due to market losses because there's a floor on your money, right? If the market is zero or negative, you get zero return.
Meaning if you, let's just give you an example, right? So if you got $100,000 inside of your insurance product and it grows to $120,000 that year, and then the market does a 30% dip, right? You still have your $120,000. You're not participating in the downside of the market.
Yeah, because we have lock-ins, right? So there's certain points where they lock in all those gains and then you don't lose it, right?
Right.
Because they're using something called a call option strategy, which most people aren't sophisticated enough to leverage or understand how to use. But the insurance companies have more money than anybody, so they know how to use these strategies to protect your money. But you also have the upside potential of the market, right? So remember, a call option, they mirror the market, but they're not in the market. So they can pass those gains back to the client and protect them. Okay, so these insurance strategies are very, very important. Okay, so then what I do is I like to explain to people about the perks of this strategy. So the P just stands for protection. The first protection I talk about is protection on your life. When you think insurance, what do you think about?
You think when you die, someone gets paid?
When you die, right? Absolutely. So who really wants to think about dying? But you have a beautiful fiance, you have kids, right? And if something happened to you tomorrow, who would provide for them?
Yeah, no one.
No one. So what this does is if you pass away too soon, it's going to pass on a death benefit to your family, which is tax-free, and it takes care of them from day one.
I want to focus on that real quick when you say tax-free. You got $1 million death benefit, your wife passes away, or you pass away, your wife's the beneficiary on it. She gets that entire $1 million, doesn't have to pay any tax on it.
No, not in a death benefit.
Okay.
Okay? So number one, it's going to protect your family if you pass away too soon. But these newer policies are very sophisticated. Not only do they have a death benefit, but you can add a living benefit. So we can help you protect your health. So if you come across something chronic and it affects your life expectancy, you can receive a portion of the death benefit where you're still alive. Or the critical portion says if you have a heart attack, stroke, cancer, organ transplant, and we all know somebody that's been affected by all that. Both of us have been affected by that.
Actually, let's go into that. So when I was 22 years old, I was diagnosed with stage 4 testicular cancer. And I had to go through chemo and all that. And I didn't know this existed. I wish I did, because it would have been nice to be able to take out a huge chunk of money, right? Luckily, I'm here today. And then yourself, you've actually died twice, literally.
I had 2 massive cardiac arrests. They call it the Widowmaker, where I had no heartbeat, no breathing for an extended period of time. Just, I thank God every day that I'm married to a cardiac nurse who was right there with me and performed CPR and did my breathing. And my 14-year-old son at the time, he's now 18, but when he was 14, my wife taught him how to do chest compressions on the spot. And he was doing chest compressions while she was breathing for me. And that's the only reason I have cognitive function today, because when the paramedics showed up, they shocked me back and they brought me back and they took me to the ER. Right? So heart attack is a major trigger. Cancer is a trigger. So there's so many things that you can accelerate the death benefit while you're still alive to help you get through those rough times where you may need access to cash.
And let's talk about why that's important. So I talk about this with all of my clients. And all of you, this is very important. And you might, it might be boring. It's not exciting like crypto and this and that, but this stuff is really important. You end up having something happen to you that takes you out of work, right? You then have to do what? Your wife has to go work more, right? Or you have to dig into your investments, right? And that sets you back from retirement, right? Whereas if you don't have to dig into your investment and you can dig into your life insurance, why not do that instead? Right? And it comes at no additional cost to what we do with these.
Yeah, it's built into it. Like, what I always say is these policies are the biggest peace of mind you could ever get against all these different things that could happen to you catastrophically. The number one stressor for most people, the biggest concern for most families is financial stress. And this helps alleviate a lot of that. So the protection, you have protection on your life if you pass away too soon. You have protection on your health if you get hurt, injured, heart attack, stroke, cancer, all of that. But you also get protection on your money. So this is what we were talking about a minute ago.
So this is going to be the fun part. This
Yes.
is the exciting part.
So how would you like it? How would you like it if you had a strategy with crypto that once you reached a certain point, you never lost any money?
Yeah.
You always locked in the gains.
That would be really cool. I'd be worth $10 million right now.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've seen the fluctuation of the crypto market, right? It's quick money, but it's also, where you lose a lot really fast too. Well, this strategy takes away all of that concern about losing that money because of the constant lock-ins on the gains. So the thing I love about what you say on your TikTok is you talk about taking your profits.
Right.
Why not take your profits, put it into something like this, continue to let that other money grow. That's your risky money, but this is your safe money. And now it's working for you, right? And it's growing and it's protected.
You don't have to worry about it going down.
You don't ever have to worry about losing it again.
Right. And it's a long-term strategy. Like I said, it's not sexy and exciting like it is to be in crypto, especially when it's green. But think about where we are today in crypto, right? At the time of this recording, it's currently October 11th, 2024. And like we've seen crypto just completely just dump. A lot of crypto just dump. Imagine being able to take the upside of all of that, and when it starts to dump, you don't lose. And that's exactly what we're trying to explain to you. And this isn't, look, I'm going to tell you firsthand, I would not put all of my money into this, right?
No.
Because I think it's very important to understand the diversification aspect of it. Like you were talking about earlier, some will perform better than others, and right? But having something like this for the long term, I think, is super important, right? It should be part of everybody's portfolio, in my opinion. Everybody's portfolio.
And diversification is one of the most important things. Don't ever put all your eggs in one basket, And these are truly diversified too, because that's actually in the name, Indexed Universal Life. We use index strategies. A lot of the investment choices in here are the broader based indexes. So you get more diversification, less risk, and it pays off, pretty well. But you talked about something very important, buying into crypto at the right times, right? So with this, all the money you put in here is allowed to grow. It's protected from market losses, right? And the next thing in perks is what? Emergency funds. Well, it's not just for emergencies. You have all that cash accumulation in there. The cash is yours, right? You have access to it. So now you put all that money in. Maybe an incredible buying opportunity comes in crypto. And you can access the cash from your insurance policy to buy into crypto again. Now, that crypto that you had a great opportunity on goes through the roof.
Now let's talk about that a little more in depth. So you take that money out. So let's just say you got 100 grand in there and you're like, oh man, we just seen a complete black swan in the market, right? And Bitcoin went from, it was at this point, I just say it was 150 grand and then it dropped down to 30. And you're like, oh my God, I can buy a Bitcoin for 30 grand, right? So you go in and you take out, I don't know, 30 grand, right? One, you're not paying taxes on it, right? Depending on how you take it out. I think it's called a loan provision, if I'm correct, but I'm going to have you elaborate on this. But number two, your money still grows like you never took it out, right? Can you explain more in depth on how that works?
So there's two different types of loans inside of these policies. One is called a declared rate loan. And typically in the first 10 years, it's a little bit more. So it might be like 2.9 or 3.9% in the first 10 years. But they'll turn around and they credit you like 2% or 3%. So typically your effective net rate to borrow your own money is about 1%, okay? So if you went to the bank, how much would they charge you right now? 5, 6, 7, 8%?
8%.
Okay, so that's a declared rate. But after year 10, typically it's called a wash loan. They might charge you 2, but then they're going to credit you 2. They might charge you 3, but then they credit you 3.
And then you still get the upside of the market?
Not on declared rate.
Okay.
Right? A declared rate is just a wash loan. You borrow the money from yourself at a 0 interest rate. Now, some of these policies have a provision called a participating loan. Participating loan, they might charge you a little bit more. Typically, the average rate is about 5%. So you're going to borrow the money from yourself at 5%. Now, this is what you're talking about. You borrow it at 5, but that money is as if you never removed it. You collateralize the policy. You didn't remove the money from the policy. So whatever the market returns, you get credited that rate. So if the market returns 10, but you're charged 5, how much did it cost you to borrow your money?
5. Well,
You gained 5.
you gained 5.
You gain 5 in an up market. So that's called a participating loan.
Now, what about the rest of the money that's in there that you didn't take out? That's still growing at whatever
It's growing at whatever rate without
So it's
a loan.
we're only talking about the money you took out. So essentially you can, this is why they call it bank on yourself. Essentially you can take out your money, right? And you're using your money while it's still growing based on the market, right? And you can use it to put it into another asset that grows as well. And now you're double growing your money.
I'll give you 2 different examples of that. When my son turned 16, of course I love this kid. The kid did chest compressions on me when he was 14 years old and kept me alive. He turned 16. He's like, Dad, I want a Jeep. So we went shopping and we looked for a Jeep. Well, we finally found the Jeep that he wanted. We go into the car dealership and the guy's like, well, our finance guy's not available for several hours. I said, I don't need the finance guy. He's like, what do you mean? Well, guess what we had done? When my son was an infant, very, very young, we started to max fund one of these policies for him. Well, guess what happened when we bought his car? We used the loan provision to buy his car. I stroked a check to buy the car cash.
Got it. So now you have a depreciating asset, but you're growing your money.
I'm still growing my money. I'm not paying a bank interest for this car.
Now, do you have to pay this loan back, right? Let's talk about that. Because
you can, but you don't have to.
So that's the important part for people to understand. That's why we talk about tax-free retirement, because you use the loan provision to, and I'm just going to say for lack of a better word, to, you're getting one up on the government here in a sense.
Yeah, well, there's a concept called buy, borrow, die. You buy a life insurance policy, you max fund it, you put money into it, you let it grow, you use it later on for whatever you need to, and then at the end, they just take it out of the death benefit.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so buy, borrow, die is one of the concepts we use. The second scenario I want to share with you is we're in this beautiful podcast studio right now, right? In this amazing building. It's about 170,000 square feet. Do you realize this building was purchased through a permanent life insurance policy?
Did he really do that?
Yes.
No way.
Yes.
That is awesome.
So a lot of real estate investors will leverage this strategy. They will max fund a policy, put all this money in there, and then they can use it to purchase real estate. So there was a lot of people that wanted to buy this building, but they couldn't come up with the collateral to purchase it.
And he did through his
And he
policy.
did through a policy that he purchased 30 years ago.
That's awesome.
And so now we're sitting in this beautiful building.
Well, we talk about these, like the wealthy understand this stuff and the everyday average person doesn't. And that's our goal here, is to kind of educate everybody else, right?
The wealthiest of the wealthy leverage these strategies because, number one, they understand the markets and the risk. They understand taxes. So this is one of the greatest ways to get all of the tax benefits that are out there, right? So right now we just talked about emergency funds, but in another episode, we'll actually break down the entire retirement strategy. You wanted me to talk about Power of Zero, but Power of Zero is a lot of stuff to discuss in one spot.
Do it tomorrow.
I'll break it down and make it this simple. If you leverage this, most people can't afford to make this their entire retirement. But what if you could afford to make this a supplement to your retirement? Okay? Maybe you've been saving money in a 401k or an IRA. Well, that 401k or IRA is setting you up for a significant tax burden. Okay? If I were to ask you right now, if you think taxes are going to stay the same, go down, or go up in the future, what would you say?
Well, we're historically almost at the lowest tax point we've been in, 80 years almost? So probably up.
It's probably going to go up, right? So you need to have a strategy that you can lower your tax bracket in the future. So if we just utilize this strategy properly, and I can reduce your taxable liability by tens of thousands of dollars, would that be beneficial for you?
Yeah, of course.
Because I can get you into a lower tax bracket with this. And a lower tax bracket just means you pay less in taxes.
Got it.
And if we could do this properly, I can get you to a 0% tax bracket.
Right.
So it just depends on time frame to retirement and how much can you comfortably afford to save.
Right. Not only that, I mean, you can turn this into essentially a pension for yourself and have it pay you until you die.
Well, there's a lot of strategies where you can create a pension, utilizing something like this. And the next thing that's super important to people like me, my wife and I, we have 4 kids. All 4 are very different. You have 3 kids, so you understand that every child's personality is different, right? So our oldest, she's super smart. You know, she went through high school. I never had to tell her to do her homework. I never had to, get on her about anything. She was very responsible. She got straight A's all through school. Well, guess what? As a result of that, she got a Bright Future scholarship to go to college. So her policy that we created for her is still sitting there intact.
So you were going to use it for college, but you
gonna
didn't
use it.
need to, so now she has it for her retirement.
Yeah. So now this is something we can give to her when we decide to, and she can use it for whatever she wants, most likely retirement. And she's very responsible.
One of the key things and why this is important is because if you're looking at all your other investments, I don't care if it's a Roth, I don't care if it's an IRA, I don't care if it's a 401k, 403b, all of these have that 10% penalty before 59 and a half as well. And what you're saying is that you can use the money without having to worry about that penalty.
Yeah.
Right? And obviously the tax burden that comes with all of these outside of the Roth, but the Roth you're maxed out at $7,000 a year, right? So what if you want to save more, right?
Yeah,
How do you, they call this the rich man's Roth, right? And then you talk about savings, let's get into that. So talking about getting the upside of the market with none of the downside. Essentially you're mirroring the market. Your money is not in the market, you're mirroring whatever that index does. So if it does 10% that year, your account gets credited 10%. If it does negative 20% the next year, then your account gets credited nothing, but you don't participate in the downside of the market. One of the things that I'll close out with this, you do have to qualify, right? It is life insurance, right? But if you qualify for one of these, and most people do, I mean, you can't have cancer right now and qualify for it. Like you have to be a somewhat healthy person, right? Yeah. But you do have to qualify for them, and then they are designed for long term. This is not something you put your money into for a couple years and then take it out, and right? It is a long term strategy.
Just like a 401k.
Correct.
Right? You don't expect to have millions of dollars in your 401k tomorrow.
Right.
You're going to accumulate it over time.
Right.
So you mentioned you do have to qualify. Like the other day we had an incredible moment. You mentioned you had cancer. And sometimes people feel like they can never get qualified.
Oh yeah, let me go into this. So for myself, one of the things that bugged me was, an IUL for myself is very expensive. So we put them on my kids. I have 2 on my son because I use one kind of for myself, right? If that we can talk about that later. My fiance, but myself, because I had cancer, I was like, I was 10 years ago, but I was like 9 years ago, give or take. But it was so expensive for me to get life insurance, and a lot of them denied me. And we were able to actually get me some the other day through Ethos, which was really cool, even though I've had these bad things happen to me. So don't think that you can't get it if you've had something happen to you, especially when you come through us. We have so many different ways, so many different companies we use. We don't just use one. We find the best product for the person.
I want to clarify something on the savings. You'll see right there it says 8% plus, right?
Yeah.
Now, all that is sometimes the investment option in there are these indexes, right? If you Google the historical rate of return for the S&P 500,
It's like 8%.
8 to 10%.
Right.
So super simple. We're going to use the best investment strategies. So we talked about all those complicated strategies. You don't have to worry about asset allocation with this because it's done automatically. We have the annual point to point. It could be a 2-year point to point. Everything is always rebalanced and redone. You don't have to worry about timing the market. All you do is you do this long term, and it's time in the market. You don't have to worry about upside or downside potential because we minimize the risk because there is no market risk with this, and you still have the full upside potential. So all those complicated things that most people deal with, it's avoided by this.
Now let's talk about real quick the people, I see it all the time, the people that dislike using this strategy, right? The Dave Ramseys of the world, and there's other people you may see that talk about it and say, oh, they're crap, this and that, and this person got hurt from it, and that person got hurt from it. The one thing I want to point out, you have to trust who you're with, and that's why we're trying to educate people on this stuff, because they can be designed wrong.
They could be.
I have a friend of mine who dumped $125,000 into one of these at the age of 49 years old, and they gave him a very, very, very high death benefit, which made his cost of insurance through the roof. In 20 years, his money won't even double. And he's also putting $12,000 a year into it, right? And so what happened was the insurance professional, they designed it for a really big commission, and I say not the mission, they designed it for a commission, right? Yeah. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story of how we're going to fix this for him, but they do need to be designed correctly. So if you have one of these, get a free review with us. We literally won't charge you a dime to do any of it, to review it, to make sure it's designed correctly. Because what you don't want to find out is years down the road, oh shit, I had no idea that this guy designed it wrong, and now it didn't end up working the way you wanted it for cash accumulation, and they designed it for a death benefit to get a fat commission on it, right? We design these and we call it max funding, max cash accumulation, right? If they're designed correctly, they are one of the best vehicles to grow your money, right? I think it's very important to talk about that, because you get your ups and downs with this stuff. You go Google search it and you hear horror stories. Well, it's because it was designed incorrectly by somebody that didn't know what they were doing, or they maliciously did something, right? Unethically did something. So it's very important that you know that you want to design these with the least amount of death benefit possible without it becoming a taxable event. And these things will perform very well. If you don't do that, well, then it's kind of up in the air.
Yeah, you just need to make sure it's designed with the client, focus, that it's going to serve what their needs are.
Right.
So these are very flexible. There's a lot of things we can do with them.
Cool. So if you are interested, you know where to find me. Anyways, personal private pension, right? So now we're going to be talking about, well, Tyler, I already have a bunch of money. I'm close to retirement, or I'm worried about the market. I'm going to give you a story real quick, and then we're going to go into this. I have a client of mine who, same one that was at Vanguard, right? And she had $1 million policy. She's perfectly fine with me talking about this, by the way. So she had $1 million in her Vanguard account. And she's like, I'm just worried about the market, Tyler, right? And I said, well, are you okay with giving up some of the upside, but getting the complete protection of the downside? And she's like, absolutely, right? I'm 60 years old. I don't have time I don't have time to make my money back, right? If we do see a correction, and it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, right? So we put her into something similar to this. So I'm going to have you break it down and explain how this works and go through.
Yeah. So if you notice, like in the graph, you see all the ups and downs, right?
Right.
I like to call that the retirement roller coaster. And most people are trying to time it so they retire at just the right time that their money is at the top, right? So we want to take that uncertainty out for them, and we want to help them get a grip on their retirement. Okay? And when I say GRIP, it's another acronym that we use. This is a personal private pension plan. Because back in the day, back when my dad worked, about 80% of corporations offered a pension where you had a guaranteed income for life, right? Nowadays, fast forward to now, nobody wants to take on that risk. So that's why they created 401ks and 403bs and all that, because it shifts the risk from the employer to the employee. But we want to give the employee back that control and take away the risk. So again, you have protection on your life. Typically if you have life insurance, you have protection on your car, you have protection on your phone, all these things. Why would you not have protection on your money? So that's all we do, is we put protection on your money. So when we say GRIP, the first thing we talk about is the G, guarantees, right? And the first guarantee we talk about is a guaranteed rate of return. Some of the companies we use, because we're a full service broker, we have almost every carrier out there, right? Some of these companies may offer you 5, 6, 7, 8% guarantee on your money, regardless of how the market performs. Okay? So how would you like to be able to gain when the market is not?
So personal private pension, this is something if you have money that it's not new money, sitting in a 401k, an old 401k that's just been sitting there, or your entire retirement, and you want to make sure that you don't lose that money and you don't outlive that money. So let's go into this.
Yeah, so what we want to talk about is a personal private pension, right? Helping people get a grip on their retirement. This is like one of my favorite things to do, because it makes sure that somebody, as they approach retirement, are safe, they're secure, they have a guaranteed income for life, right? So the G stands for guarantees. The first guarantee we talk about is a guaranteed rate of return. As a broker, there's a lot of companies that we partner with and work with. Several of them will offer you maybe a 5, 6, 7, 8% guaranteed rate of return. So that way you don't have to fear the market being negative or flat. You know with certainty that you're going to get a positive return on your money. The second guarantee we talk about is we talk about leveraging an indexed strategy. We get you more diversification, less risk, right? More potential on the upside, okay? And with an index strategy, what happens is market goes up, we lock in the gains. Market goes up, we lock in the gains. Market goes down, you're protected from the losses. So that index strategy is very important. And then the P stands for pension. The whole idea of a pension If you look up the definition of a pension, it's what? An income for life. Now, there's a study done by a huge insurance company, and they asked our retirees, what is your biggest fear? Most of them, believe it or not, it wasn't death, it was outliving their money. Imagine having a little nest egg put away, your 401k, your IRA. You've overspent it. Now you don't have anything left, but you're still super healthy. You probably got another 20, 30 years left in you.
You got to go back to work.
You got to go back to work.
And we know corporations are not offering pensions anymore. It's less than 20% of corporations are offering pensions. It might even be lower than
Less
that.
than 8%.
So less than 8% of corporations are offering pensions now. You're required to fund your own retirement. And a lot of people, they're, especially if you get into, imagine being in a point in your life where you're about to retire, you're in retirement. Let's just say you're in retirement, right? And you're like, I do have enough money, right? I'm going to be okay. I'm going to live the next 25 years and I have plenty of money. But then the market takes a dump. Yeah. Right? You lose 50%. You don't have enough money anymore.
No.
So you need to then start protecting your money. So those of you, this is not something for you in your 20s, 30s. But if you get into your 40s, 50s, and 60s, if you're in your 70s, this is something that you may want to look at. Protecting your money, right? Protecting what you have, protecting that nest egg. Because we all know, again, it's not a matter of if the market's going to have a correction, and it's going to be big. When we have another correction, it's going to be very big. It's a matter of when, and do you have the time and the money set aside to outlast it? Are you set up properly? And do you have the right protections? Right. This is one of the major things I talk about with people all the time. Is look, you're in your 50s and 60s. You don't have the time to outweather a storm.
No,
you don't.
You have to get rid of the risk.
And you talk about the guarantees. These also, if you're like, I don't want the indexing side of it. I just like a guarantee. I know some of these are giving me 6-8% guarantees.
Well,
on
a
your
lot
money.
of them give you both, the best of both worlds. You could get the guaranteed.
And if the market does better, you get the better.
The market does better, you get better.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And I want to caution everybody. If you are going to rely on Social Security in retirement, you're going to be in deep, deep trouble because Social Security was meant to supplement your retirement, not be your retirement. The average Social Security check is somewhere between $1,200 and $1,700 a month.
Right.
And if you just check your budget right now, can you afford to live off of $1,200 to $1,700 a month?
Hell no.
Yeah. So it's very important that we protect that money and give you a guaranteed income stream so you know exactly what you have to work with.
Awesome. Cool, David. Well, I appreciate it like always, man. I love you. Thank you for being here and the opportunity to talk to you with this. And for those of you that are interested in learning about this, you know where to find me. Send me a message. Send me your name, your phone number. We will reach out to you. So we'll talk to you soon.